Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, St. Augustine.
Parallel supercomputing was vaguely mentioned as a science fiction back on February 1, 1922, and in the book titled Weather Prediction by Numerical Process. For 7 decades thereafter, parallel supercomputing remained in science fiction until I discovered it on the 4th of July 1989 in Los Alamos, New Mexico, United States. My contribution to the development of the computer is this. I moved the parallel supercomputer from science fiction books to science textbooks. I was the lone wolf supercomputer scientist, supercomputer inventor that discovered parallel processing. My confidence as a parallel supercomputer scientist did not come from vector supercomputer scientists who in the first place believed that the massively parallel supercomputer will forever remain a huge waste of everybody's time. My confidence that I could solve the toughest problem arising in supercomputing came from within me and from the command of materials that I possessed. Confidence comes from being the most prepared and the most knowledgeable. Progress does not always come from always being right. Progress comes from not fearing to be wrong. There is a great difference between a scientific fact and a science fiction. Back on February 1, 1922, parallel processing was theorized for accurate weather forecasting, but the technology was not then a science fact, but was a science fiction. On July 4, 1989, and 67 years after parallel processing was described as a science fiction, I discovered that parallel science fiction, I discovered that parallel supercomputing is a science fact. It is a scientific fact. I once asked a friend why he left journalism to become a fiction writer. He said, journalism deals with facts, while fiction deals with truths. In the 1970s and 80s, my quest for the fastest supercomputer that was then hidden in the unknown world of massively parallel supercomputing was for a scientific truth, not a science fiction. My new parallel processed way of counting 1 billion things at once and across as many processors is a mathematical truth, not a mathematical fiction. The writer is a generalist. The poet chisels words. The novelist describes the human condition. But it's the scientific discoverer that changes the human condition. After 16 years, onward of June 20, 1974, of programming 16 supercomputers, I knew that no supercomputer scientist was on my heels in that race to become the first person to discover the world's fastest supercomputer that solves 1,000,000 problems at once or in parallel. The new supercomputer attained its world record speed across a new internet that was a new global network of 65,536 commodity off-the-shelf processors that were equal distances apart. On the 4th of July, 1989, I recorded and discovered the fastest possible parallel processed supercomputer speed. After my discovery, parallel processing became synonymous with supercomputing and became the gateway to extreme-scale computational physics and became the solution path to the toughest problems arising in mathematics. The supercomputer is the workhorse of mathematics and physics. My discovery of practical parallel supercomputing was publicly unveiled at the awards ceremony of the 35th IEEE Computer Society's International Conference that took place on February 28, 1990 in San Francisco, California. I did not invent parallel supercomputing overnight. Should we value science more than literature? Literature describes, while science explains. Literature gave us parallel processing as a science fiction story and did so on February 1, 1922. But it was science that turned that science fiction into non-fiction and did so on July 4, 1989 in Los Alamos, New Mexico, United States, the date and place that I discovered that parallel processing will forever remain the vital technology that makes computers faster and makes supercomputers fastest. Leonardo da Vinci was at the crossroad of science and art. The contributions to knowledge of great scientists like Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, and Marie Curie carried greater gravitas than the writings of great novelists like Ernest Hemingway, Charles Dickens, and Jane Austen. Unraveling the mysteries of the universe carries heavier gravitas than telling the story of a person. This is the reason that about 100 scientists have been portrayed on currencies, but William Shakespeare, that is considered to be the greatest writer of all time, is not on any currency. An airport or hospital or university can be named after a historical figure in science, but not after a historical figure in literature. International airports are named after Nikola Tesla, Copernicus, and Leonardo da Vinci, but none are named after William Shakespeare. The memorialization of poets lacks the depth of that of scientists such as Albert Einstein or political figures like Nelson Mandela. A poem is not as important as the internet. A well-known poet confessed that his poetry is useless but not harmful. The storyteller cannot become the hero of the heroism he is basking in. The biographical writer's fame is a reflected glory that is achieved through writing about a famous person rather than through doing what made that person famous.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.